Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. I'm playing a session of 1-2 No Limit on Ignition. Thank you for choosing my video. Upper left-hand table, open the button with King 4 suited using a 44% range. Big blind checks to me on the Queen Jack 6 monotone board. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Can barrel on diamonds, 10x type hands. We get check raised here, not all that large a size, and we're in a very loose formation, so I'm going to want to float this pretty widely. Given that I've got a good backdoor straight and backdoor flush draw, I think this is a good hand to peel with. He really shouldn't have too much in the way of jacks or queens for sets. Some sixes might even be 3-bet pre-flop. He should be 3-betting his queen jack suited. It should be hard for him to have some real strong hands in that spot. He goes ahead and checks. I'm going to start putting pressure on the guy right here. Going to continue with a half-pot bet. And look to really put some more chips in on the river here to move him off. I do have some draws to 2-pair trips as well, which is nice. I can legitimately have queens, jacks, sixes, all the queen jack, the queen 6 and jack 6 suited. Like it a bit better with the, probably if I had the 6 as opposed to the 4 blocker, his 6s is more likely to be in his pre-flop check raising range. Oh, and look at that line. That's sexy, the double check raise. I will go ahead and fold it. I suppose I could continue here with all my strong hands. I could also continue with my open-ended straight draws as well. He puts my, my strong 1-pair hands in a bit of a bind there, if, to whatever extent I'm betting those. King 4, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, we get a recreational player who pots it on the flop on the ace, king, queen monotone board. I do have a small spade and top pair, and now I've got aces up. That's a pretty decent turn card for me. He's been barely and aggressive. He blasted pot just before the cameras came on an orbit or two ago as well in a limp pot, so I'm not going to be too inclined to believe this guy here, especially when I've got a pretty good bluff-catching hand. Lower left-hand table, going to open ace-9 from the cutoff using a 28% range, and this guy is kind of a fishy player. He can have flop flushes or flop straights, but I just think this guy's been pushing buttons too much, so I'm going to go ahead and hero call this down. And we both got ace-3 for the chop. Lower left-hand table, the big blind calls. I'll go ahead and range bet him small on the jack 8-4 two-tone board. Face a check raise, and without a whole lot in the way of draws or strong backdoor draws, I'll just go ahead and fold that one. This player playing 50 blinds deep is probably a recreational player. Lower right-hand table, the suspected rec limps, confirming he's a rec for me. I check in the big blind with 10-5. Flop checks through. I've got the open-ender, so I'm going to go ahead and bet the minimum on the turn. River is the king. I bought a busted draw. I'm not going to show it on 10 high. I'll go ahead and put in a bluff and try to move him off of it. Not going to fold him off ace-5 ever there, but can fold him off plenty of other stuff. Lower left-hand table, got a 2.5x open for middle position. I will defend my big blind with king-queen and check range on the flop. Razor checks the flop through, so I'm going to go ahead and start probing the turn. I've got 2 overcards to make a pair I can value bet. Very likely have the best hand already as well, except against ace-high. Lower right-hand table, the rec player limps the middle position this time again. I'm going to go ahead and complete the small blind with 7s. We probably isolate out of there with 8s or better and check and limp in behind with 7s or worse. Lower left-hand table, my probe got raised. I think it's pretty unlikely he actually has all that strong a hand here. I guess he could have some ace-deuce that checked back the flop. Beyond that, he's not repping too much. I would play back at this to some extent just because the line is so suspicious. But I want to have a little something going for me, like a flush draw or maybe a 6x for a gut shot or something, 6-7. Let's see. Lower right-hand table, I jab the turn after the flop check through. Now that the board counterfeits me and I play 7 high, I've got no choice but to go ahead and bluff this and try to fold out a busted straight draw. 9x or 8x never folds, but a lot of busted draws that beat me will. And I get raised. We can probably give him credit for a full house a large percentage of the time here. I'm just going to go ahead and fold that one too. Lower left-hand table, opening king, queen suited under the gun using an 18% range. Upper left-hand table, rec limps, cutoff player isolates him. I'm going to play 3-better fold here for the most part. If this guy was deeper, I could probably sneak in with a few speculative hands. So I'm not too worried about getting limp re-raise squeezed out of the pot. I think queen 9 is probably a little bit too weak to sneak in there with, though. Or right-hand table, open ace-10 for middle position using a 21% range. Recreational player calls me in the small blind. And against the squeeze, I'll just have to go ahead and fold a hand as weak as ace-10. It doesn't play that well against the pre-flop 3-bet range. For left-hand table, I'm in what's effectively the cutoff. I will open King 6 suited using a 28% range. Get a call from the small blind, snap call. It seems kind of recreational type player to me. He's already was on the radar for having a limp. And calling the small blind, I think he's probably a fishy player. On the Jack 10-7 two-tone board, I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Lower right-hand table, I will check in the big blind with Queen Jack, the under-the-gun player having limped and the small blind completed. Against that check raise on the upper left-hand table, just go ahead and fold a weak hand. Lower right-hand table, I'll check range on the flop here, sandwiched between two players in the limp pot. I do have the open-ender and two overcards. Turn is the 7, which doesn't really help me any, but my hand is still just as strong draw-wise as it was before. The small blind player leads out for pot. Given that my draw is so strong, I'm going to go ahead and continue for a call. Upper right-hand table face a large 3.5x open from a player who's been on the tight side, or loose passive at least, rather, so far. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold for that large size in the big blind, given that I think his pre-flop range is probably not all that weak, even though it's a button open. And against the river follow-through into two players, slight overbet, I've only got queen high. Just going to go ahead and lay it down, not get too tricky or clever, and try to find some bluff raise there in a spot that doesn't really warrant trying to do it. For left-hand table, recreational player limps on the cutoff this time. I'm going to sneak into that pot with 4-3 suited and take a flop. Flop ace-10-10 two-tone. I do have the flush draw. Check range to the in-position players. Get a pot-sized bet from the limper. I don't see any reason to raise this guy, as he's really never folded an ace or a 10, and I can move him off his air that he decides to do that with later. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a turn for a call. There is the jack of hearts, rather, giving me a flush. I'll continue checking in flow to both players. And we get a very small lead, about a 20% donk lead from the big blind who's playing short, and then a snap call from the in-position player. Feel like I should just go ahead and raise this up now that we've got some extra money trapped in there and try to get these guys to commit with their ace or their trips. Maybe somebody's got Broadway there. Lower right-hand table, open 3s on the button using a 44% range. Get called by both the blinds. I will not be range betting against two players, and I will not be betting 3s on a king-queen-10 rainbow board. Lousy river in that it double pairs the board, but he's got 12 bucks left in a $104 pot. I'm going to put him in and make him hero call me with the ace. If he's got the full house, that sucks for me, but it's the way the cards fall. Good. We're good here. Okay, lower upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open for middle position. I will 3-bet the small blind with ace-10 suited. 3-betting about 8-9% in that spot. And the player that I stacked there for his small stack, he had ace-5 offsuit. Upper left-hand table, will open jack-10 on the button using a 44% range. Get led into for pot by this fishy player. I do have a gut shot on the ace-king-7 two-tone board. I think it's worth peeling once to try to hit that queen and see if we can play a big pot against this guy. We'll not be getting too active against him if he continues blasting for large sizes. He again blasts for pot on a board pairing turn, another ace, putting the backdoor flush draw out there. I'm going to go ahead and fold now. I think the flop float is fine, looking to hit the gin card to really play a big pot against this guy that's shoveling money out of position like that. Lower right-hand table, open pocket kings under the gun using an 18% range. Lower left-hand table, going to open jacks in the cutoff using a 28% range. Jacks were called by an in-position player, a fishy player playing 55 with 70% limps over the first couple of orbits. I'll check range to him on the king 10-8 rainbow board. He blasts for pot, not going anywhere with, pocket pair for second pair off a 1-bet. Turn is an 8, pairing the bottom card on the board. I will continue checking, playing in flow, check to him. He again blasts for pot, and now I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold against the second barrel. I've got 8x or king x I can, of course, call down. Upper right-hand table, got a 2.5x open in the cutoff. I've got ace-jack in the small blind. That's right on the cusp of what I'd like to 3-bet, usually just outside of standard range. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it. Lower right-hand table, a recreational player calls in position, and we get a get a 6-3 deuce two-tone board. I'm going to check range to him. Now he goes and he bets $2 into 12. I'm going to go ahead and put in a check raise with my pocket kings. Check raise him a little over half pot. And he folds out. Get a 5x ISO on the lower right-hand table. I'm going to be treating this a lot like the small blind and play just a 3-bet or fold situation. I think 7s is a bit too weak to do that with. Be popping up to about 45 here. Probably want to 3-bet jack. 3-bet jacks or better ace-king to get them in for that large 3-bet sizing against a jam. I have about a 50-50 ratio of hands that 3-bet call to a jam and hands that 3-bet fold. Pocket 7's a little too weak to be in that range. Lower left-hand table, got a 3x open from what's effectively the cutoff. I'm in the big blind with pocket 9s. Going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet. 3-betting about 10% in this spot. Upper right-hand table, opening ace-deuce suited under the gun using an 18% range. A short stack suspected weak player min raises under the gun, playing about 25 blinds deep. I can defend for a call with that price with 6-5 offsuit, and he'll check range on the flop. Lower left-hand table, opening king 10 on the button using a 44% range. And we get an overbet 10 into 855 on the upper right-hand table on the ace-jack 8 rainbow board. I've got 6 high, no backdoors. Just go ahead and check fold. Lower left-hand table will open queen 10 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Loose passive recreational player calls me in position. Get a great flop from my hand, queen jack 7 two-tone. I also have the flush draw. We'll go ahead and check range to him. He quickly checks back. I'm going to go ahead and probe the turn small, having made the flush on the 5 of clubs turn. Upper right-hand table, open queen jack suited blind on blind for a 3x open. Lower left-hand table, the rec limps in the middle position. It folds to my big blind where I'll pop him up with pocket jacks, raising about 12% there, pretty tight out of position. Lower right-hand table, open ace-7 suited on the button using a 44% range. Upper right-hand table, opening queen-10 on the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table, got a jack-10-7 two-tone board. I've got bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet against the fishy small blind. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the cutoff. A player playing on a half stack calls the button. I've got the fishy player that calls everything behind me in the big blind, not likely to get squeezed. I'm going to go ahead and sneak in for my deuces, looking to hit a set on the flop. Get an ace-ace-king rainbow board, and the big blind folds out, so my plan did not go according to action, but I do think it's a reasonable plan. Check range on the flop. The button stabs for half pot. And I will go ahead and fold. I'm going to go ahead and give this guy a recreational player tag for sitting in the game with a half stack. It's usually a pretty good giveaway, especially in a 1-2 game. Upper right-hand table will open queen jack suited under the gun using an 18% range. This table is not good except for the one player that's short in front of me, but he's got the worst possible position for a fish. And aside from his short stack, he's not being particularly fishy, so I'm going to shuffle this table out and look for greener pastures as the other tables all look pretty good. Big blind calls me, get an ace-ace-deuce two-tone, or rainbow board rather. Go ahead and put in a small range bet. Got some cards that can pick up some equity there, as I do have a backdoor flush draw. Get a recreational player limp and about 55 blinds deep on the cutoff on the lower left-hand table. I'll isolate from the button with ace-jack using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%, and everyone quickly folds. Lower right-hand table, a rec limps under the gun, small blind completes. I check my big blind with 5-4 suited. I'll check range on the flop. We have a jack-6-4 rainbow flop. Turn is e5, giving me bottom two pair, putting a backdoor flush draw out there. I'm going to go ahead and start probing the turn small, planning to bet pretty much clean rivers for value. Maybe the real strong rivers that boat me up can be overbet. Offsuit queen on the river, I can value bet this, but I don't think I should be using an overbet size with bottom two pair multi-way. I'm going to go ahead and bet a more 2/3 standard type size. The in position rec folds out, as does the small blind, and I pick up the pot. Don't get value, but pick up the pot. Upper right-hand table doesn't look too promising with lots of full stacks, nobody playing sharp, but we'll give it an orbit or two and see if anybody outs themselves as being a less than stellar or recreational type player. Lower right-hand table, I'll open ace-5 on the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, open ace-queen suited middle position using a 21% range. Ace-5, I flop a double gutter and backdoor flush draw on the 7-4-3 two-tone flop. We got the small blind player in the pot who's a recreational player. Going to go ahead and range bet him small, looking to pick up some of those cards that help me and start shoveling money into this pot. River or turn is a offsuit queen. I've still got that double gut shot, so I'm going to go ahead and continue betting. Going to be using the overbet size here, overbet or check, because that card doesn't really improve too many of his hands. He shouldn't be too strong. I've got all the sets in the 5-6 suited. He should be greatly limited by his ability to have those sets by not having re-raise either pre-flop or on the flop. And the overcard can scare a lot of his middling pairs off as well. Lower left-hand table, we get the rec limps under the gun. It folds to me in the big blind. I pop him up with ace-10 suited, doing this with a tight range, about 12%. Ace-10, ace-9 suited, the worst suited aces I would use. On the jack-6 deuce rainbow board, I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. He calls. Turn is the queen of diamonds, giving me the backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and continue barreling against this guy. I'm going to use a small half-pot size, just because I don't think he's going to raise me off here. Can put some pressure on his nonsensical hands that floated the flop. Doesn't force me to shovel too much money in until we get to the river and see if I actually hit one of my good cards or not. Can still overbet on the river to get money in if I want. Don't think I'm going to be raised a whole lot in this either by using the smaller size. I am raised, so as soon as I get the words out of my mouth, he makes a fool out of me and puts in the raise. However, he min raises me. I've got to call 15 into 78. I've got a gut shot to the nuts as well as the nut flush draw and an ace-high overcard. A very easy call looking to hit my card. Get to the river. I hit Broadway. I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Do I want to just go ahead and jam into this guy after he raised the turn? I think I do. I don't want to give this guy a chance to get away from a sort of a middling hand. I think I want to give him a chance to just click call. So I'm going to donk lead into the fish here and just jam and try to get paid. Lower right-hand table, going to check range, sandwich between two players. My little plan works. He snaps me off, and if I've got the nuts, so I know I'm good. Upper left-hand table, the limper comes along. I check in the big blind. The flop checks through an ace-jack-6. Two-tone, turn is a 5, giving me a gut shot. I'm going to start jabbing at that turn small. Lower right-hand table, 9-9-3, flop checks around. Turn is an offsuit 6. Going to go ahead and put in a small bet there. Start trying to take this down. My ace-10 hand was against queen-deuce, so he turned 2-pair on that queen turn. Upper left-hand table, having made a 9, I don't see much reason to try to get him to fold a jack or an ace. I think I can showdown good against his weaker pairs or busted draws. He goes ahead and 2x pots me, though. I'm just going to go ahead and fold to a rec, doing a 2x pot size bet. Lower left-hand table, I got called. I don't know that I really get enough folds from pocket pairs. My ace-queen high is going to be good against all his busted draws. I'm going to try to show this down for free and see if he lets me. It may be consider bluff catching against a fish here as well, depending on what size he uses. Now he goes and he bets 54 into 23. Given that he's overbetting so large and I've got nothing but a pure bluff catcher, we're just going to go ahead and lay that down. And he put a bluff on me with queen 4, but hey, good for him. I'm glad to know he's got it in him. I'm glad he showed me that the overbets can actually be a bluff from a guy like that. So, not even remotely bothered by losing the pot to the fish. But I hope he enjoyed that he won it, so he sticks around and plays some more with us. And that ace-10 hand where I stacked the recreational player, that donk jamming for 2x pot is obviously, I'm sure it's obvious, but it's obvious to say it anyway, a deviation from what I would normally do. I don't really donk very much because I just don't know how to balance it all that well. I haven't studied it. I don't know what spots it's good, what spots it's bad. I'm doing that just because letting him check back and not picking up almost a full buy-in on that river the way I did would be an absolute travesty. You know, when he goes and raises that turn, I think he's probably got something he kind of likes, but it doesn't mean it's super strong. It doesn't mean he's going to continue betting the river, especially a reasonably scary river like that that makes, you know, better two pairs, puts better two pairs in the Broadway straight out there. So I think I definitely want to lead against a recreational player after he's shown strength. When he raises that turn, I don't think this guy's really ever folding all that much, so I'm not going to bluff him, much less overbet bluff him, but I'm also going to try to make sure he doesn't get the check down and show down his hand for free when I've got a chance to get some value. So that was a deviation from a standard play. I wouldn't really do that against a regular type player, but that was a deviation because it was a fish, and that's why I did it, to get paid and not let him check back. 3x open on the button, lower right-hand table. 10-8's a little bit too weak to open with, so I'm going to go ahead and fold that one. Lower left-hand table, we'll open queen 3 suited from the button using the 44% range. Going to shuffle this table out too, as it looks like it's all regs. I got the fish's money for anybody else, and now it's time to move on. Guy is almost certainly some kind of fishy player here, playing 63-18 over the first orbit, playing that many hands with almost all for calls. This guy is also called a lot too, called middle position, called cutoff, and called button. So these guys seem like suspected wrecks to me so far. We'll know a bit more in an orbit or two, but I've already seen enough to get an idea. This guy 44-11 through the first couple of orbits, but his calls were in the big blind or the button, so not nearly as suspicious. Lower left-hand table, I'll open deuces in what's effectively middle position using an 8 or a 21% range. Get called by the big blind, get a 10, ace, queen, 10 two-tone board. We'll go ahead and put in a small range bet here. Shutting down on the turn unless I happen to hit a set with this particular hand. He quickly check calls. Turn is the 7 of hearts. If I had the deuce of hearts, I think I might blast for half pot here just because I can fold him off some stuff, and I can still semi-bluff, you know, to that heart and check back if I peel the 4th heart, show it down, realize some equity that way. And it gives me a hand I can triple barrel with that's good for the image, if nothing else. However, I do not have the heart, so I just check back. He leads into me, 3/4 on the river. I'm just going to go ahead and fold. New table, got direct position and a player playing 50 blinds deep, and there's a limp, so I'm very happy with this seat. A couple seconds into sitting before I even dealt in. Upper left-hand table, we're in the first orbit. Only real suspicious activity so far is the player playing about 25 blinds deep in the 3 seat. We can go ahead and put a tag on him. Nobody else has really shown anything too wacky as of yet, but hopefully somebody shows us something here to justify our presence at the table aside from the 3 seat. Upper left-hand table, got a 2.5x open in the cutoff. I'm in the big blind with king nine suited. Could three bet or call this. I tend to lean more towards call, but it's kind of right on the cusp. I usually call ace nine, king nine, and three bet hands like queen nine, jack nine, but it's very close, and you can construct your range a variety of different ways in this spot. I elect to call here. I'll check range on the flop. I flop top pair on the king five deuce two-tone board. Let me see here. I've got some better offsuit kings. This is my best suited king. I think I'm going to go ahead and check call it, but I could also understand a check raise here as well. Check it. Lousy turn card for me. The ace of diamonds puts a double flush draw up there, and also the overcard. And he goes and he blasts again. Let's see here. I think I need to be continuing. I've got some various ace-x type hands. River, six of diamonds, continue checking. Upper right-hand table, got a 2.5x open from the cutoff. I'll three bet my big blind against a recreational player with pocket kings. Three betting about 10% there, he quickly folds. He follows through with the 2/3 bet size. The 2/3 bet size is about neutral in this formation from regular players. The triple barrel line is slightly less bluffy. This cutoff versus big blind formation is slightly less bluffy. Ace turn overcard about neutral. King high flop about neutral. Flush closing river about neutral. So the texture patterns aren't impacting too much, but the line and the sizing and the formation all tend to point ever so slightly towards a fold. I don't dominate any value. I think we can go ahead and fold king nine. I think the real discussion there is, do I continue with king nine on the turn or the river? Or do I fold king nine on the turn or on the river, knowing that I'm going to have to fold a lot of river barrels with that particular hand anyway? And I can have a lot of ace-x that hit an overcard there. Hit an overcard there on that particular turn, as well as some flushes I backdoored into. Ace deuce five, so I would call with my ace deuce, my ace three. Ace four and ace five were mostly three bet pre-flop in that particular spot. I can also have some stuff like ace-jack, ace-10, ace-9 with the ace of clubs that might float against that small size as well. So I've got a lot of ace-x I can call down with there, as well as whatever flushes I found a way to backdoor into, mostly king-x and 5x backdoor flushes. Our left-hand table, open in fours in middle position using a 21% range. I get three bet by the button, a large size, a 4x size, so I can fold a ton to that. We'll gladly be folding pocket forest to that large in position three bet. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind. I'll open king-jack using a 45% range. Get 3-bet by the big blind. This is a very loose, wide formation. He hasn't 3-bet yet, but it's only a second opportunity. I'm just going to treat him like any other standard reg in this particular spot. King Jack offsuit's the kind of hand I like to use as a 4-bet. Use the smaller size here, blind on blind, go about 2.2x out of position. But I'll go ahead and 4-bet 9s plus ace-king to get in against a standard reg in this spot. And then mix in a few bluffs like maybe a suited ace, pick a combo like ace-5 or ace-6. And then use some of my offsuit Broadway hands that can't continue like ace-jack, ace-10, king-jack sort of hands. He goes ahead and calls. We get a 4-deuce-deuce two-tone board. Going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. Really, that board really shouldn't do anything for him except on his pocket pairs that were already ahead pre-flop. I've got 9s or better, and you're really not going to get me to fold any of those on a board like that. So bluffing is pretty reckless, pretty suicidal. Though I guess you can get me to fold my unpaired cards for the most part. Maybe I think I might have to call with ace-king if he plays at me in that spot, just because I can be ahead of so many draws. Upper right-hand table, opening queen-jack from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table, opening 7s from the cutoff, again using a 28% range. Small blind 3-bets me. Second hand at the table. Going to treat him like a standard reg, using a reg sizing, buying in for a reg, buying in for a reg stack amount as well. It's the 4.5x. 7s is right around the cusp of what I would continue with here. Cutoff for small blind for about a 4.5x. 7s through queens, my suited broadways, ace-king can all be calls. In 4-bet kings, aces, ace-king suited to get them in, and ace-queen offsuit as a bluff with good removal and playability post-flop. He bets 12 into 43. That's very clearly a reg using that very small sizing. 7's a little janky because the 8-9 is actually going to crush me if the 7 peels. However, for that size, and I just don't think I can fold very much of anything. I can't fold my 10s, can't fold my jacks. Although, actually, if I think about it, all my Broadway cards are at least a pair or some kind of a straight draw with overcards. 7s is actually my worst hand here, and given that it gets in trouble on certain cards that improve it, like the 7 runs into the 8-9 nuts, I think I can go ahead and fold the 7s just because it's absolutely my worst hand, along with 9s and 8s. 7s might be a bit better than 9s because 9s run into king-queen for the nut straight, which he should have a lot of, whereas 7s run into 8-9, which he shouldn't have as much of. And I think the pocket pair underpairs to the board, my 9s, 8s, and 7s are my worst possible hands in that spots, and my folds, even against a small size, should be picked from that. Upper right-hand table, a 2.5x open from a shorter stacked, 40 blind player. He's been pretty active and aggressive pre-flop. I'm going to go ahead and defend for a call with 6-4 suited. Cutoff open for the same 2.5x size upper left-hand table against the reg. 6s are a good defense. In both cases, I check range on the flop. Upper right-hand table, King Jack 5 rainbow board. He checks back. Turn is a 5, putting the backdoor flush draw up there. I'm going to go ahead and lead the turn small. The reg checks back the King Jack Deuce monotone board. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at that pot with my 6s and planning to follow through as a bluff on the river. We get a 7 of clubs. Going to go ahead and bluff this hand for sure, as I've got pocket pair with no club. He's got a club. He's probably not folding a whole lot, but I do think it's better than just checking and letting Jack X or a weak King X get there on me. And he goes ahead and raises me. Easy fold with the sixes. Lower left-hand table, open an ace-10 from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table is regs, an aggressive reg, and a one shorter stack that hasn't done anything, so really not that great a table. Lower left-hand table got called in position, then squeezed by the small blind. Ace-10 is just a standard easy fold in that spot. Get a 2.5x open from a presumed fishy shorter stack type player against a 2.5x open, 6-3 offsuit, still a little too weak to be calling. Go ahead and fold that. It's a lot closer with the small sizing, but I still think you should probably fold. Lower right-hand table, opening King 10 from the cutoff using the 28% range. Get 3-bet by the big blind. Go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, blind down blind, I will open Jack 7 suited using the 45% range. Get 3-bet. This is probably too loose to call, but this is a very loose formation. Yeah, I'm probably calling hands like Ace-7, King-7, 9-7, Jack-8, Queen-8, 10-8 suited. Jack-7 suited can be a fold. Actually on the cusp for how loose that formation is. He's also been reasonably passive pre-flop. Well, maybe not enough to draw any conclusions. I don't think I need to be defending a 3-bet there with Jack-7 suited. A $100 half stack player buying in here on this table on the upper left hand side, so we'll stick around and see how. Oh, never mind, he just topped up the 200, so I'm gonna not presume he's some kind of wreck the way the stack size tell first made me think that he was. Three X open, that's right around the blind on blind spot, lower left-hand table. 5-4 offsuit is right around the bottom of a defense range for me. Given that he's a lot shorter, 125 and not 200, less chance of winning a big pot if I happen to hit some kind of straight or boat. I'm going to go ahead and be a bit tighter with him being shorter. Six seat playing 85 blinds deep, probably a bit fishy in the upper right-hand table. Get a 2.5x open from a slightly shorter stack on the button on the lower left-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and defend for a call with 10-5 suited. Check range on the flop. Checks back. The turn is a 3. Get a king 7-3 two-tone board with a 3 on the turn, pairing it up. I'm going to go ahead and lead the turn small. He calls. River is the 5 of spades. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I think I'll just try to show that down against ace high as a matter of fact. Better 5. Reasonable logic, though. Really don't think he ever folds a flush, a king, even a 7. Some of those hands if I overbet, but I'm not sure I want to be overbetting there without a good blocker. I mean, I do block the 5, but it's not that relevant having hit on the river to block boats, and I don't have any spades, much less a big spade. Lower left-hand table, open queen 9 on the button, using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, opening aces from the cutoff using a 28% range. Get 3-bet in position by the button. I'm going to treat him like a standard reg in this spot, having not known anything else about him on his second, third hand at the table. We get an overcall from the small blind. That makes this a bit more interesting. I was going to stack off with 10s plus an ace king. Now, however, because of the overcaller out there, I'm still going to stack up with the same range. Just the question is, do I 4-bet small or do I jam? I'm still going to 4-bet small with that same range, including my bluffs. Hands like ace-queen offsuit, ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited is some bluffing hands. Maybe I move the wheel aces out of the bluffing range in case I get myself pot stuck against the fish. And I screwed up that sizing. That sizing should have been a little bit larger. Probably not the end of the world, though. Get an 8-5-5 two-tone board. I don't have the relevant spade in my hand, but I'm not that concerned about it. Going to go ahead and range bet small. He calls. Turn is the 9 of spades, which isn't great for me that I don't have a spade. If I had the spade, I could trap with the ace. Without, I think it's far too dicey to give another free card. So I'm going to go ahead and ship it in with my vulnerable overpairs, including aces here without the spade, but trapping with the spade. Could also ship in the naked ace of spades with ace-queen offsuit. And got the fold. Lower left-hand table, get a cutoff open, a button 3-bet. I'm in the big blind with king-jack suited. This is a cold 4-bet or fold spot. He's stacking off with jacks or better. Ace-king, mixing in some bluffs at about a 50-50 ratio, including a few suited broadways like ace-queen, jack-10, king-queen, king-jack. He instantly ships on me. He having none of my bullshit, and I got to fold out. Lower left-hand table, I'll call the 2.5x open blind on blind with jack-9 suited against a player playing in a half stack. Now he bets about half pot into the queen 9-6 two-tone board. I will call with my second pair. And he bets about 60% on that ace turn. I've got third pair now, double flush draw out there. There's no real great cards for me. Even the cards that improve me, like the jack, make either flushes or straights in a lot of cases. The 9 is probably pretty clean. I'm not that worried about trip 9s being beat. But that said, I can just be behind an ace or even a queen, and I'm not drawing all that wide. I'd rather continue with hands with more robust draws. I'd much rather have a hand like Jack 10 there than Jack 9 drawn to the open ender or some kind of flush draw. I could have some ace X or some queen X, of course, to continue. I think folding the 9 is just fine. Upper left-hand table, open queen jack from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table, open 8s from middle position using a 21% range. Lower right-hand table, a cutoff recreational player limps, folds to my big blind. I'll check in with king 7 of spades and check range on the flop. Flop checks through, turn is a jack of diamonds. I'll go ahead and stab at that pot for the minimum. Lower left-hand table, a player who may be a fish. He just going to follow through with the king 7 as a bluff on the river there as well. Without the diamond, I might even overbet this combo. Going to go ahead and 3-bet the recreational player that limped the last hand after he opens middle position 2.5x. I've got ace king on the button, 3-betting him there pretty aggressively. Probably about 9%. Upper left-hand table, going to call the 3-bet with pocket 8s from the in-position player against the 3x 3-bet, right around the cusp of my 3-bet defense range out of position against the 3x open. Lower right-hand table, going to open king 9 blind on blind using about a 45% range. The rec in the big blind calls me. I'll check range on the ace 10 6 rainbow board. Turn is the 8 of hearts, giving me a gut shot. I will go ahead and probe the turn small. I think I can actually fold 8s here for the 3rd bet. 8s is my weakest pair. All my other pairs are stronger. My Broadway cards mostly flop trips. I'm going to go ahead and fold the 8s. Lower right-hand table, going to open king 8 on the button using a 44% range. I'm going to go ahead and raise up the queens in the small blind against the min raise from middle position and a couple of flats from fishy or suspected fishy players. Going to stack off with the queens if somebody calls me. 3-betting about 7% in that spot. Get a 3x open from the button in the upper left-hand table. I've got ace 9 offsuit. I can go ahead and defend that for a call. Probably defending no worse than ace 9, ace 8 offsuit against that sizing. We'll check range on the flop. Upper right-hand table, open kings on the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, the 6-3 deuce two-tone board check through. Turn is the 9 of spades, giving me top pair, top kicker, putting a second flush draw out there. I will go ahead and lead the turn small. I'm planning to value bet the river. That's a good river for me. It does close the flush, but I'm not that worried about a flush in the flop check line that he took. I'm going to go ahead and lead then for about 2/3 for value with my top 2 pair. He quickly calls me off, and my hand is good. And he had ace 10 with the 10 of clubs, so he flooded with ace high on the turn, which is not unreasonable, and then rivered ace high, the top pair of aces. I think his play is just fine. I just happened to have 2 pair that time. Suspected wreck on a half stack, limps blind on blind. Upper right hand table, I'll check in with 10-3. Upper left hand table, I'll open Jack Queen from the button using the 44% range. Upper right hand table, the King 8 Deuce Rainbow board, he checks. I'll go ahead and stab for the minimum in this limp blind on blind pot. He comes along and check calls. Turn is a 3, giving me a bit of showdown value. However, he donks into me for pot, just over pot. So I think I'll just go ahead and fold the hand as weak as the 3. Upper left-hand table, get a Jack 10-7 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet small. I do have a decent top pair. Upper left-hand table, I'll open 3s from the cutoff using a 28% range. Big blind comes along and calls. You get an Ace 8-4 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet here versus his check. He comes along for a call. Turn is the ace of diamonds. I do not have the diamond in my hand. If I did, I might stab with this. Without, I think it's okay to check back. I'd be using a half pot bet size on this board. Half potting with my 8s full, my 4s full. My good aces, especially with, or actually a lot of my aces, even some of my weaker trip aces without a diamond. A lot of aces with diamond I would check back because they're going to play just fine on the river. River King of Diamonds, going to go ahead and turn my 3s no diamond into a bluff. Got called by 9-8. Good thinking player there. He called me down there with the 9-8 bluff catcher. I'm pretty sure at least. Lower left-hand table, got a 2.5x open under the gun. I 3-bet from the button with pocket aces. 3-betting about 8% in this spot. Upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the cutoff. A weak player calls in the small blind. I will squeeze from the button with ace-4 suited, squeezing about 10% in this particular spot. My aces get 4-bet, which I am, of course, very happy to see. I'm not so happy that my ace-4 suited squeeze got 4-bet, so I'll go ahead and fold that. In this 4-bet spot, this is a tight formation. I'd jam kings, ace-king, call with queens, jacks, ace-queen suited, and trap with the aces. So we'll go ahead and take a flop with the aces, get a beautiful low board, 6-4 deuce rainbow. His overpairs are probably hung out to dry here at this point. I can at least snap off a continuation bet from a lot of other stuff. He goes ahead and he bets 22 into 90. He bets about a quarter pot. I'll float that. Float that with pretty much everything in my range. Aces, queens, jacks, and ace-queen high. Especially the ace-queen suited with the backdoor flush draw. Upper right-hand table, open ace-jack from the cutoff, or middle position, using a 21% range. He jams about pot, 4 straight board, not worried about the 5, of course. I'm calling down. He's got kings. That's just a cooler. But we're allowed to have coolers in our favor every once in a while. I'll take it. Still calling with queens there, too. It's not like his jam is bad. His jam is, of course, I think pretty good. It forces my middling overpairs to call. He can get me to call off with jacks there, too. I'm willing to bet. And he's had enough. He quit the table. I don't blame him. That's a greasy setup. A recreational player limps the cutoff, lower right-hand table, small blind completes. I'll check in with ace-3 suited, check range on the flop. Lower left-hand table, open jack-10 from the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower right-hand table, queen 7-5, flop checks through. Turn is an offsuit queen. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at this with my ace-3, assuming it checks to me. It does. Fold out the rec. and fold out the small blind. A 2.5x open from the button, and the small blind player, recreational player calls. I would defend the big blind open with ace-4 offsuit, but with the second player in there, I want hands that are just going to have a bit more robust equity to be in the multi-way pot. I'm going to start folding hands like these raggy offsuit aces instead. Lower left-hand table, we'll open ace-5 on the button using a 44% range. Big blind comes along, get a queen-jack-3 rainbow board. Checks to me, go ahead and put in a small range bet. Calls me. Turn is the 7 of hearts, putting the backdoor flush draw out there. Keep blasting, overbet or check would be my sizing convention here. Probably trap with the set of queens, but blast the other ones. Blast with queen jack, blast with queen 7 suited, jack 7 suited, queen 3 suited. Blasting probably overbet is weak as either king queen or queen 10, checking back the worse hands. And I've got various good flush draws and open-ended straight draws to bet with, some gut shots as well. I'll check back the ace-5 without a whole lot of real robust equity, but maybe can peel an ace overcard. River is a board pairing card, the 3. I just don't know that I really ever fold out a queen or a jack. I maybe fold out a few middling pocket pairs, but I just don't know there's enough value in bluffing the ace high. If he's going to let me check down here with it and maybe have some kind of busted draw, and we end up chopping with ace-10 instead, I think that's okay. Maybe I get that particular hand to fold, but I just don't know that I get a lot of hands that actually beat me to fold. Lower left-hand table, opening 8-7 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table in my big blind, I'm facing a 2.5x open from the cutoff. I will defend my big blind with queen 10 and check range on the flop. Get an ace, queen 8 rainbow board. Lower left-hand table, get 3-bet in position, and the big blind goes ahead and calls the 3-bet. I'm just going to go ahead and fold out of position with 8-7 suited, but I do think this guy's a weak player to be cold calling the big blind like that with the cold calling a 3-bet. Upper left-hand table, get a very small, looks like 289 into 1045, about a 25%, 28%, something like that bet. I will go ahead and check call with my second pair and continue checking on the turn. Upper right-hand table will open 10-7 suited in the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower right-hand table will open in Jack 10 suited under the gun using an 18% range. Get 3-bet in position. Upper right-hand table will fold to 10-7 suited. I'm going to continue checking the queen 10 hand and that river king. I can maybe bluff catch this. Can bluff catch that most likely. Yeah, no sense in trying to fold him off an ace or a king. That's for damn sure. Probably not enough value in value betting either. I think checking is the clear play. Lower right-hand table, my Jack 10 suited gets 3-bet by an in position, a fishy player playing about 150 bucks deep. I'm just going to go ahead and fold out of position. Upper left-hand table, the middle position player limps on a half stack. I'm on the button with King 9. I'll isolate here with something resembling my cutoff open range, about 28%. King 9 just barely on the outside looking in on that particular range. So go ahead and fold it. Isolating the rec also can't be too bad as long as these guys aren't too 3-bet happy. So if you want to isolate there, I don't have a major problem with it. Upper left-hand table, a rec on a half-stack limps under the gun. I will isolate from the cutoff with something like my middle position open range, about 21%, including pocket fours, and everyone quickly folds. Upper right-hand table, a rec limps blind on blind. I will check in for free with 8-6 offsuit and go to the flop. Get an ace-6-3 rainbow board. I'll stab for the minimum after he checks. Lower left-hand table will open ace-6 offsuit on the button using a 44% range. Here's a dead small blind. Could probably be a bit looser as well because of that. Either way, I'm opening ace-6. Get a 9-4 deuce two-tone board. I do have the backdoor nut flush draw with the ace of hearts in my hand. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. He comes along for the call. Turn is the offsuit 7. I think I want to go ahead and check that one back. If I had, like, a gut shot here with the flush draw, I would go ahead and blast. I think with that, I'll just go ahead and check that back. Lower left-hand table, opening Jack-8 suited from middle position or from the cutoff using a 28% range. Going to go ahead and stab on that Queen River with the ace high, try to fold him off some kind of pair. And do upper right-hand table, get a min raise under the gun, and then a fishy player in the cutoff calls. I'm going to flat my button with pocket fours, getting such a cheap price and in direct position to a recreational player with a decent bit of money. I think that's a good reason to sneak in for a call on a spot I wouldn't normally do it. Lower left-hand table, I got it called by the big blind. Going to go ahead and range bet him small on the 6-3 deuce two-tone board. Rec leads into me on the 10-7 ace two-tone board. I've got no piece of it, so I will just gladly fold out my fours, make my money by sneaking in there looking for that set, not by getting involved in a multi-way pot without a set and a bunch of overcards out there. Jack-8 on the lower left-hand table, got check raised by the big blind. Just going to go ahead and fold without any relevant backdoor draws to help me continue. Player seems like he's probably a little bit fishy. He's got some limps on record already. Upper right-hand table, that rec let out for 10. You got check raised to 36 by the pre-flop raiser, and he just jams all in for another 4x over that size. Ace-7 ahead of Ace-King, and the Ace-7 holds up. All right, our hero just got a few extra dollars. We like to see that, especially when I've got direct position on him, and I just picked up pocket kings. Unfortunately, he folds, but I'll still be opening my kings in the cutoff using a 28% range. Get the 3-bet by the in-position player. He's been active. He's 3-bet 2 out of 8 times so far. We're going to treat him like a standard reg and 4-bet here with 10s plus Ace-King to stack off, as well as Ace-Queen offsuit and a couple wheel aces as a bluff. He jams. I call off with the kings. Up against Ace-King. Pretty happy to see that. And kings hold up. We pick up a stack. And so now I've got coverage on the fish there, sitting 150 blinds deep with immediate position on him as well. Was going to wrap the session up pretty soon, so hopefully we get a chance to get in there with him quickly. Lower left-hand table, my deuces are sandwiched between a couple of players, so I'll check range. And an ace-9-7 two-tone flop. Turn is the 10 of spades, closing the flush. Get led into for pretty close to pot by the big blind player. Even though I do have the spade, there's no reason to continue with the deuces. Just get out of the way. This upper left-hand table I just got does not look very promising. I don't see some reason to continue. I'm going to shuffle it out quickly. Lower left, right-hand table will open ace-5 suited from middle position using a 21% range. Rec in the small blind calls, as does the big blind. Get a 6-5 deuce rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet here at my second pair top kicker backdoor flush draw. Mostly just denying equity from overcards here. Juicing the pot slightly if they do want to call for some runouts that are good for me, mostly featuring diamonds peeling off. Both players call. Turn is the 10 of spades. I'm going to go ahead and start slowing down with this hand now. Check that back to the river. Great river for me. 5's giving me trips. Get led into for half pot by the big blind player. Going to go ahead and raise this up. Just mash the pot button. Hope he's got a worse 5 or a suspicious 10. Upper right-hand table, open fives under the gun using an 18% range. Our hero lost some of his stack. Didn't see what happened. Comes along and calls us, get a queen jack 4 monotone board. We'll range bet him small if he checks. Lower right hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun. I will defend my big blind after everyone else folds with my 9-10 suited. Get a jack 7-4 two-tone board. Got a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. He sizes up, bet spot 2/3 on the flop, so I'm not going to be check raise bluffing him here with a gut shot. I am going to continue once, given it's one of my strongest gut shots. Gut shot to the nuts, backdoor flush draw. Turn is an offsuit jack, pairing the board. I'm going to go ahead and continue checking. I'll just check fold against any meaningful bet here on this card, although I will lead the river as a bluff if it checks through. Does not, he overbets, I'll quickly fold. Lower left-hand table, open king 10 suited for middle position, using a 21% range. Upper right-hand table, a 2.5x open from under the gun. I will defend my big blind with ace 10 and check range on the flop. Getting 9-8-6 two-tone board. I've got a gut shot with the 10, and I've also got the backdoor club draw with the ace of clubs. Lower right-hand table, open ace 7 from the button, using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, get led into a third pot by the fishy player in the small blind on ace, ace, deuce. I've got king high with the backdoor flush draw. I will float that at least once. Let's see here. Upper right-hand table, the flop checks through. Turn is an ace, giving me top pair with a go with my gut shot. I'll go ahead and lead that small. My ace 7 got 3-bet by the small blind on the lower right-hand table. I'll just go ahead and fold that. Lower left-hand table, he stops betting. I'll go ahead and check back my king high. River is a 5. I've still got king high. I'll probably just show this down here against stupid air unpaired high cards that I still beat. Not going to try to fold out pocket pairs, much less trips or a boat. Lower right-hand table will open 9-8 suited from middle position using a 21% range. I'll take my short on the lower left-hand table with king high against a double check, and I'm against 9-6 offsuit. My king high is good. Lower left-hand table got a 2.5x open from a player who's been on the loose passive side. On the button, this is one of the weaker hands versus a button open rather, so one of the weaker hands I would defend. Given that he's been a bit on the loose passive side, he's probably not quite as wide as he should be there. I think I can go ahead and put that hand in the fold range instead. Lower right-hand table, got a limp pot with the cutoff player limps, button limps behind. I checked in with 10-6 offsuit. On the flop, I checked on the ace-6-5. The limper pots the player that limped behind overcalls. I'm just going to go ahead and fold my second pair there. 3x open from a loose passive rec. I'm in the small blind on the lower left-hand table. Just go ahead and play 3-bet or fold and fold my fives. Our left-hand table get a 2.2x open under the gun. I'm in middle position with queen 10 suited. A little bit too weak to be 3-betting here. Pretty close, but I'd prefer to fold it. It's also the first hand he's opened in 2 orbits. If anything, this guy may be trending slightly tighter than he should be. Clearly a reg with the 2.2x sizing as well. So I'll just go ahead and fold. Would 3-bet him about 8%, 8 to 9% there, but maybe not all my suited broadways. Maybe fold a couple like queen 10 and jack 10. Lower left-hand table got queen 10 under the gun. It's right on the cusp, usually just on the outside looking in. I'll go ahead and fold it. It's pretty close, though. This is about where I would be planning to cut my session off right now, but I do seem to have some pretty decent spots right now, including deep stack direct position on a recreational player on the upper right-hand table, so I'm going to stick around a little bit longer. Lower right-hand table will open 10-8 blind on blind using a 45% range. Upper right-hand table, the rec limps, I will isolate from the cutoff using pocket aces with something like my middle position open range, about 21%. Get called in position. Another player playing about 150 blinds deep. Rec comes along as well. Get a nice scary board. Jack 10-8 two-tone. I don't have the relevant ace of spades in my hand either. I'll be checking range sandwiched between 2 players. Checks through. Turn is a jack. I'm going to go ahead and start probing at this turn small, using about the 1/3 sizing here. I can be nutted with my flop range check as well. I can have queen 9. I can have various jack X, 10s full, 8s full. Both players quickly folded, though. Not how I was expecting the hand to play out when I saw myself get that aces with the rec limping, but still picked up a few blinds. Get a 2.5x open under the gun. Button calls, as does the recreational player in the small blind. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze from the big blind with ace queen. Squeeze in about 6-7% in this spot. What I really would like to have happen is fold these guys out and play against the rec in position with ace queen off, heads up in this bloated pot. But we'll see if they cooperate with me. Got through the tough one. Got through the in-position player, and the rec folds out too, so I pick up the pot preflop, which is also a pretty nice result as I pick up another 17 blinds of dead money. Upper right-hand table, going to open ace-king from the cutoff using a 28% range. Don't love that there's a player that's a little bit deeper in position with me, but thankfully he's not that deep, and we're not all that deep. He's only about 135 blinds deep, and he's not getting too out of line with me at the same time. I'm not being punished by that aspect of the table dynamics, and I can play in position deep against the recreational player, which is what I'm here for. Lower left-hand table, open threes under the gun using an 18% range. Get 3-bet on the button. He's on a half stack, so pocket threes do not play very well against a 3-bet typically, but he 3-bets so small, pops me up from 5 to 10, that it really would be criminal not to call here. And I'm going to call and just try to hit my third three. Get an ace-5-4 two-tone board, so I don't hit the third three. And I can just go ahead and check fold against the 2/3 bet. If he bets smaller, maybe he cocks me into coming along looking for a deuce or a three. Against that 75% bet, I think I should just be folding, which is what I do. Get a 3x open from middle position. I'm in the big blind with pocket nines. It folds to me. Pocket nines right on the cusp. Probably more of a call than a 3-bet for me in the big blind against the middle position open. This guy's also been on the tight side, so if anything, I'm going to deviate even slightly tighter. I think that makes that a clear call as opposed to 3-bet. I will call with the nines and check range on the flop. The recreational player opens to 4x on the button. He's been very loose passive, only opened 6% of hands so far in 50 chances, or 50 hands at least. I am not going to 3-bet him with king-9 suited when the player has been that tight. Let's see. Lower left-hand table, he checks back the flop. Turn is the queen, putting the 4 straight out there. I'm going to go ahead and lead out with my nines. Just try to take this pot away, and he lets me do just that. Don't know why he doesn't just bet that flop there, but fine with it. Lower right-hand table, open king-8 suited from the button using a 44% range. Recreational player in the big blind comes along, checks to me on the 6-6-5 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet small. I do have backdoor flush draw. 7 gives me a straight draw. Turn is the queen. I think I would keep betting here with 6x for sure. 5's full. Could probably bet a lot of queen x here. Could bet my open enders like 8-7 suited. Could probably bet even some overcards like ace king. That's got a smidge of showdown value. I think I'll be checking a lot on this particular board. Check back to king 8. And let's see here. On the river there with the 9, I actually have good removal to the straight. He's a fish out of position. I'm going to go ahead and just blast him strong. Overbet him heavily. Lower left-hand table, going to open the cutoff with Jack 7 suited, using a 28% range. Fishy player in the big blind comes along, get an 8-7-5 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet small. I do have middle pair along with the backdoor flush draw. Goes ahead and he check raises me. I don't know that we're deep enough to really make my backdoor record be all that worthwhile. I mean, I do have a pair, but I'm in a lot of trouble against the real strong flopped hands. I think I'll just go ahead and lay that one down against a recreational player's check raise. Upper right-hand table, everyone folds to the rec who limps the small blind. I will check in with 9-3 suited. Get a king, queen, 9 two-tone board. I'll stab for the minimum here against his check. He comes along and calls me. Turn is the 3. This is not a real strong hand. I don't really have the real strong hands, as all my sets and my flop straights would have been raised pre-flop. So I'm not going to be butting too large, but with the 2 pair, I am going to keep betting for value. Use the smaller half pot size. He comes along and calls. River, I think overbetting here, even though it's a pretty clean run out, it's a little on the thin side. I'm just going to go ahead and bet about 2/3 for value. Let him calm me down with a middling 1-pair hand, which I beat. He goes along with my plan. He calls. He mucks. My hand is good. And he had queen 8 offsuit, which is not a terribly unreasonable way to play that hand. Lower left-hand table, going to open kings under the gun using an 18% range. Cutoff player calls, which is a little suspicious as far as him being a regular to cold call from the cutoff. However, he's been playing pretty reg-type stats and stack sizes so far, so he's probably just trying to set hunt me or something like that. It called from a fishy type or weak reg type player in the small blind as well, and the big blind comes along. Get the dream flop for pocket kings, ace 5-4 monotone with no relevant king of hearts in my hand. I'll be checking range sandwich between these players in this multi-way pot. In position, player stabs for about 1/3 of the pot. With the king of hearts, it's an easy call without multi-way. I think I'm content to just fold. I don't really want to be calling without. Flop flushes, flop sets. The king of hearts or some kind of pair of aces with a mostly either a strong pair of aces or a pair of aces with a heart kicker. I guess opening under the gun, my worst offsuit ace is going to be. Well, I've got all the suited aces, so I could probably even fold some of the weak suited aces that hands like ace-7 suited with no heart. Check call all of my offsuit aces that have a heart in their hand. Check call all my ace-king, ace-queen. Probably even check call all my ace-10 and ace-jack as well, at least once on the flop against that small size. Probably start folding the weaker offsuit aces, or the weaker suited aces that don't have the heart in their hands. Probably even just check calling my entire continue range there and reevaluating on the turn. Upper left-hand table opening 9-8 from the button using a 44% range. Same situation, lower left-hand table opening ace-6 from the button. Big blind calls. We get an 8-4-3 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Some cards I can barrel on. A 5 most notably gives me an open ender. Not sure that I want to barrel any other turn card there. I peel an ace for top pair. I'd rather check back my weak top pair. And this is going to be my last orbit here. I think it's about time to wrap up. Give me a couple more chances at getting into a situation here with our friend the Wreck in the 1 seat. Got a 3x open for middle position. I will 3-bet from my big blind with ace-queen suited. He quickly folds, 3-betting about 8% in that formation. Get a 2.2x open in the upper left-hand table. Folds to my big blind. Queen 9 just outside of standard defense range for me. I'm going to go ahead and put in the fold. Upper right-hand table, I'm on the button with 5-3 suited. One of the weaker hands I will open, but still a very reasonable fine hand to open on the button. Open at about 44%. Get a limp, an isolation raise, a short stack calls. I'm in the small blind with ace-king. Going to go ahead and put in my 3-bet. Let's see. Pop that up to about 39. stack off with queens or better against a jam. Turn it into an even bigger mess now with the overcall here. We get a top pair, top kicker, a king, jack, 10, two-tone board. I got just over pot. I've got top pair, top kicker, and the gut shot to the nuts. I think we just want to go ahead and blast this guy all in for pot here. He calls with 8-9. Don't mind him doing that at all. So he's drawn just to the 7. The queen doesn't even do him any good. And that just feels like free found money for me right there with his silly limp call to raise and re-raise play. Upper left-hand table, going to open 5s on the button using a 44% range. Lower right-hand table, opening ace-king on the button using a 44% range. Dead small blind, could probably even open a bit wider than that. Last hand on the upper right-hand table. Never really got a chance to tangle with our buddy the Rec too much, but it's okay. He already pissed away a good portion of his stack anyway. Lower left-hand table, last hand going to be, or right-hand table rather, last hand going to be opening king 8 suited from middle position using a 21% range. Everyone folds except the big blind, getting 9-8-3 rainbow board. I do have a backdoor flush draw. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet here following the big blind's check. Comes along for a call. Turn is the 5 of hearts, giving me a backdoor flush draw to go with my second pair. I want to be barreling some flush draws and checking others. The flush draws with some showdown value, like second pair, are ideal candidates to check back. I'd much rather be blasting with two unpaired overcards with the flush draw. Hand like ace-4 suited for a gut shot kind of thing. King 8, I think, is a great flush draw to check back. Can also bluff catch a ton of rivers. That river is not ideal as it puts a 4 straight out there. However, he doesn't stab at it, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my showdown. And he's got third pair on the flop, 4-3. He really should have turned that into a bluff. I'm not so sure it would have worked, but I think it's what he should have done. Regardless, the hand is over, and I did scoop a tiny little pot there. The session is over. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.